Mr. President, yesterday we confirmed two more excellent judges here in the Senate. Despite Democrat obstruction, we continue to move forward on confirming nominees to the federal bench. Some of our Democrat colleagues have criticized the amount of time the Senate spends on judges. Well, Mr. President, we have spent a substantial amount of time on judges because we've had to. Back in the day, most of the judicial nominees we're considering would have been confirmed without the time-consuming cloture vote process. By this point in President Obama's first term, Republicans required cloture votes on just three of President Obama's judicial nominees. Well, let's compare that to today. As of July 24th, yesterday, Democrats had required cloture votes on a staggering 94 judicial nominees. 94, Mr. President, to 3 at this same point under President Obama. And it's not because they're fiercely opposed to all of these nominees. In fact, again and again, Democrats have turned around and voted for the very same judges that they delayed. Just a couple of weeks ago here in the Senate, we confirmed 3 district court judges by huge bipartisan margins, 78 to 15, 80 to 14, 85 to 10. Clearly, these were not nominees that Democrats bitterly opposed, and yet Democrats insisted on the same old delaying cloture vote tactic that they've used with so many judicial nominees. So I, too, am frustrated that we've had to spend a lot of time on judges. I miss the days when uncontroversial nominees regularly passed without cloture votes. But if my Democrat colleagues are going to insist on delaying the vast majority of nominations, we're going to have to keep spending time on judges. Because let's remember, we're not doing these nominees for fun. This is part of our job. We are working to fill a substantial number of vacancies on the federal bench. Despite the Senate's efforts, the vacancy rate currently stands at 13.8%, higher than the rates faced by President Obama, President George W. Bush, and President Clinton at this point in their first terms. And vacancies on the federal bench have consequences. Primarily, they result in long waits to get cases heard, which serves nobody. It would be nice if my colleagues across the aisle would abandon their delaying tactics on non-controversial nominees and speed up the process of filling these vacancies. But regardless, Mr. President, Republicans will continue moving forward with judicial nominees. And I'm very proud of the judges that we're confirming. We're putting excellent federal judges on the bench who are committed to upholding the law. Now, that sounds like a pretty obvious requirement for a judge, Mr. President, a commitment to upholding the law. But too often, it seems like many on the left would prefer activist judges who act as super legislators, rewriting laws they disagree with when the law doesn't reach a result that fits with Democrats' political opinions. But those kinds of judges, judges who move beyond the law when the law doesn't line up with their political agenda, are not a good thing for anybody. Sure, it might seem nice when an activist judge who shares your political opinions reaches outside the plain meaning of the statute and rules for your preferred outcome. But what happens when that same judge reaches beyond the law to your detriment? What protections do you have if the law is no longer the highest authority? The answer is none. You don't have any protection. Because at that point, the judge, not the law, has become the supreme authority. And you are at the mercy of his or her personal opinions. Security, justice, equality under law, these principles can only be maintained as long as we have judges who are committed to upholding the law as it is written and not as they would like it to be. If we have bad laws, we can and should change them. But any changes should be made by the people's elected representatives as our Constitution dictates. They should not be made by unelected judges. Judges are meant to interpret the law, not make it. And I'm proud that we have been putting judges on the bench who will uphold the rule of law in this country by interpreting the law as it is written, regardless of their personal opinions. Mr. President, as I said earlier, we confirmed 2 excellent judicial nominees this week. Unfortunately, one ran into some Democrat opposition during the confirmation process because he was Catholic. That's right. Apparently, the fact that he takes his faith seriously enough.
Ben. Will the Senate be in order? Take your conversations outside of the chamber. Senator from South Dakota.
Apparently, the fact that he takes his faith seriously enough to participate in a Catholic charitable group, the Knights of Columbus, is enough to make him suspect as a judge. Well, Mr. President, I had hoped we were done with Democrats' flirtation with religious tests for public office when they questioned the fitness of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, because she takes her Catholic faith seriously. But apparently Democrats think it's perfectly legitimate to suggest that you can't be both a person of faith and a nominee for the United States judiciary. Let me just remind my colleagues what Article 6 of the Constitution has to say about that. This is from Article 6, and I quote, "No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States," end quote. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. It's deeply troubling that we have Democrats in the United States Senate suggesting that religious faith disqualifies you from public office. And if Democrats are using their objections to these candidates' religious faith as cover for the fact that Democrats don't want to confirm anyone who doesn't share their most extreme political opinions, that's deeply troubling too. Mr. President, religious freedom is a bedrock principle of this nation. Our founders considered it so important that it is the very first freedom mentioned in the Bill of Rights. And by freedom of religion, they didn't mean it's okay to pray, to have religious beliefs, or if you do it quietly inside your home. They meant freedom to practice your faith in the public square, even if that means having different political opinions from Democrats. I hope Judge Bishop is the last nominee who will have his fitness for public office questioned simply because he chooses to live out his faith. I was glad to vote to confirm him yesterday, and I look forward to confirming more qualified judicial nominees in the near future. And I hope, Mr. President, the Democrats will drop their delaying tactics and join us as we work to fill these important vacancies on the federal bench.